to respond to that, that is simply one example, and I'm sure you can pull a bunch other out. But, and I'm not saying that what the Democratic Party did that night was correct. I believe that what they were doing was standing against Trump's hypocrisy and his narcissism and his way of like making himself look good by using other people who are marginalized to make himself look good.
So here's my suggestion, and take it for whatever it's worth. Calling the opposition political movement a cult when the other one that you happen to be more allied with is obviously much more of a cult is not helpful.
Okay, then tell me. Tell me how it's a cult. Tell me how the Democratic Party is a cult compared to...
Hey family, you're welcome and welcome back to my channel. It's a baby girl in the building. So today we are back again with another reaction to Charlie Kirk. In this video, Charlie Kirk snaps and destroys a woke culture. And this got Hollywood filming. So if you want to see this reaction, don't go anywhere. Stay right there.
Gorgeous. And then we start walking.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then maybe let's look at the gentleman. Gentlemen, you guys can acknowledge us. Ooh, who is this? Cool.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm sorry. I'm a man of God. I can't do this. Oh, no. Yeah, I love those people. I pray for them. I would never do anything to hurt them or condemn them. But men are not supposed to dress like women. I'm not going to go along with that. It's time to stand up and be a man of God.
If I want to abort it, I'm do that.
Yeah, so if I don't want to own a slave, but you want to own a slave, am I supposed to just sit around and say that's okay?
Do not sit here in front of a microphone and compare owning a slave to me, you white fucking bitch. You have no idea to sit here and say this to me.
What you're arguing is that that child doesn't have the same right to life as his or her mother, because you have decided, and what you said during your comments was that if I got pregnant and chose not to have an abortion, I can do that, but you can choose to have abortion because the mother gets to decide the value of that person. That's exactly what happened in pre-Civil War America. You could choose to assign value to Black Americans depending on what you felt like. You could say, oh, I am against slavery because I know these people are human beings that have value and no one has the right to own another human person. But if I was a plantation owner in the South, I could say, yeah, they have some value, but they don't have full value.
Why do you think Piers is so offensive?
Well, I think the way that Piers talks about non-binary people is that you mock them, you make fun of them, you use them as entertainment, you use the lives of real people in this country, a vulnerable minority, as something to make fun of and get a reaction.
Well,
for example,
well,
when you claim that you're a two-spirit penguin.
Yeah, you know why I did that? If literally you can now identify in 100 different ways your gender, including two-spirit person and all this other stuff, then I'm entitled to identify as a two-spirit penguin. And what's interesting is, you want me to respect all those 100 genders, however ludicrous some of them are, but you have zero respect for my right to identify myself in any way I see fit. So in other words, it's one rule for you. You say everyone's entitled to say they can be whatever they want. But the moment I decide that I want to be a two-spirit penguin, you go absolutely nuts and want to control how I self-identify.
That's not how it works.
That is the point I'm...
Statement / question is, would you agree / disagree that the Make America movement, Make America Great movement, again, you know, MAGA movement, is a cult?
No. Why don't you explain to me and the audience what is a cult?
Of course. Okay. Do you know any characteristics of a cult?
Sure. I mean, you could take the Jonestown death cult, of which there was a charismatic leader that constantly lied people, and they took him out of everyday normal life and leads them towards ostracization and cutting off of family ties. Am I getting closer to describing the Democrat Party?
According to the... No. What I'm talking about is MAGA. According to the Bethune Cook University website, characteristics of a cult include isolating members and criticizing them for leaving. Would you say that members of the MAGA movement will criticize others for leaving?
Well, yeah, I mean, but you guys criticize players that transfer out of the University of Tennessee football team. That's not a cult.
Okay, what about the absolute authoritarianism without meaningful accountability?
Okay, so what you're trying to say is that, like, what the leader says, the leader gets, basically?
Yes, Trump.
We have lots of disagreements in the MAGA movement. In fact, I'm more pro-life than the president is. In fact, a lot of people in this audience would have differing views maybe on where the president is at on Israel or Gaza or Ukraine or Russia. In fact, some people in this audience might say the president is not as pro-Second Amendment as they would like. I would argue that we actually have far more intellectual diversity in the MAGA movement than your traditional Democrat Party.
I see where you're going with this and stating that not every person who, I guess, supports Trump is fully supportive of him, but I'm saying the MAGA movement who will agree with him no matter what.
Well, I actually think that there's more depth and complexity to the MAGA movement than you would imagine. A lot of people here who would consider themselves to be part of the MAGA movement, they won't blindly sign on to everything that Trump does. However, they will say that they agree with him 8 out of 10 times or 9 out of 10 times. And so I would say, though, you know what was a cult? What was a cult is what we lived during COVID. During COVID, and allow me to build out the argument that no matter what the CDC or Anthony Fauci would say, you would have the little talking heads on television parrot it back, no matter how insane it was. We must close the schools, 6 feet to slow the spread, wear a mask while showering. Okay, I made that one up. But, I mean, the point being is that that far more had characterizations of what a cult would be than the traditional Make America Great Again movement.
Okay, but you could also argue the side that Fox News does the exact same thing, where they just regurgitate everything that the right media is saying, and people on the right will believe anything Fox News says. And I'm not defending CNN. I'm not saying the Democratic Party is perfect. I'm just saying that there is a movement of conservative people who support Trump who will do it no matter what.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get to where you have come to this opinion. I'm trying to understand it because I see something completely different.
I do not use CNN as my news source, by the way, just so you know.
Good for you. Apparently you haven't been in an airport recently, because the only people that watch CNN is if you're walking through an airport. So I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, and by your own definition of a cult.
It's not my own, it's a legitimate
fine. So let me ask you a question. A cult would probably convince people to do something that would be against their humanity. Would you agree?
Yes.
A cult would probably get people to do something that they know is wrong, even though they think they should do something as right.
Maybe, because some of these people are brainwashed into believing certain things that they don't actually agree with because they don't have the proper information on it.
So, for example, would you agree that when the Democrats sat during the State of the Union address to not applaud a kid with brain cancer, that is cult-like behavior? Because their leader told them not to do it. I mean,
well, who told them not to?
Exactly. I mean, their leadership told them.
So who's their leader?
Well, Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries, they had strict orders: do not stand and applaud for anything Trump does. They told us this.
Yes.
And so then Trump says, hey, can we just have a moment of non-political? Here's DJ Daniel. He's dying of brain cancer. He's now a ceremonial member of the Secret Service. And every Democrat sat with their arms crossed, not even being able to show the humanity. I mean, that's a cult.
Okay. To respond to that, that is simply one example, and I'm sure you can pull a bunch other out. But, and I'm not saying that what the Democratic Party did that night was correct. I believe that what they were doing was standing against Trump's hypocrisy and his narcissism and his way of like making himself look good by using other people who are marginalized to make himself look good.
So here's my suggestion, and take it for whatever it's worth. Calling the opposition political movement a cult when the other one that you happen to be more allied with is obviously much more of a cult is not helpful.
Okay, then tell me how it's a cult. Tell me how the Democratic Party is a cult compared to MAGA.
I'll give you another I mean, you asked me for more examples.
Yes.
The day of the State of the Union address, all 22 Democrat senators repeated the very same video on social media, mindlessly like robots.
What video?
The video where they said, something is effing out of control and this is not right. You guys all saw that video. Repeating the same incantation with not even like an iota of creativity or ingenuity, like just repeating it like as if they've been hypnotized into a... Got it.
I have not seen that video.
Well, you should. But again, I'm not even the one that is up here throwing around the cult word towards the Democrat Party. I just think it's a supremely rich accusation to say the MAGA movement is part of a cult, when evidently, based on the own standard that you put forward, the Democrat Party embodies those characteristics far more than Republicans or conservatives ever have or ever will.
So one of the main aspects of a cult is a leader, a charismatic leader that people will follow blindly no matter what. The leader of the MAGA movement is Trump. Who are you stating the leader of the Democratic Party is that people will follow blindly without questioning no matter what?
Well, I mean, there's...
And I'm hearing tons of different examples, so that can just tell you there's not one.
Okay, again, so it could be Obama, it could be Rachel Maddow. I mean, the point being is that I don't even think it's the strongest argument to call either party a cult. That's not why I'm up here. I'm simply just playing the same frequency that you're coming at, that based on the definition, the Democrat Party is far more mindless and far more of a Borg, to use a Star Trek analogy, than the Republican Party or the conservative movement. And so, but here's something I do want to ask though. If you are positing that it is a cult, do you think this entire audience is part of a cult and they don't realize it?
I think that my statement was the Make America Great Again movement is a cult. I'm not saying the conservative party is. I'm saying the far-right MAGA movement is a cult. I will say that I believe in my heart that there are certain people in this group who could be characterized as someone who is in a cult.
Okay. I mean, I think that's insane. And I'm not here to give Democrats advice, but it's so destructive to our politics to call people that just won a national electoral landslide and the national popular vote as part of a cult. Maybe instead it should be, maybe they have better ideas than we do.
Maybe they just... Maybe they had billions of dollars to put into their campaign funding that got them the awareness.
Hold on. I mean, you seem well-intentioned. So who spent more money in this election, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? It's not even close. It's 3-to-1 more money was spent by Kamala and her affiliated super PACs than Donald Trump.
Do you have the numbers?
Yeah, you can go to opensecrets.org. You can look at all the outside groups, the hard money that Kamala raised, the super PACs that they raised. Democrats, by the way, do you know that 8 out of 10 of the wealthiest counties in America vote Democrat? Do you know the wealthier you are in America, the more likely you are to be a member of the Democrat Party? That the more, if you work with your hands and you don't graduate from college, that you're less likely to be a Democrat. Now, one of your fellow cult members just screamed at me from the audience saying, well, that's because they're so educated. Do never conflate everybody, credentials with an education. Just because you have a lot of degrees does not mean you have the most important thing, wisdom. Wisdom is different than a credential. Now, I could tell that you're coming after this from a good perspective. So my last homework assignment for you is this. I want you to go find 5 people with a MAGA hat once this event is over and talk to them. And then I want you to say what you said to me. I want you to first accuse them of being in a cult, because if you can say it to me, you can say it to them.
Sure.
And then I want you to have a good faith conversation, because we are not going to bring this country together, of which is actually our goal here as part of the MAGA movement, which is why we have an open mic. If you go around accusing people as if we're following Charlie Manson.
You just did the same thing to me.
Well, in all fairness, I said, if this is the standard of our dialogue right now, the Democrat Party is far more of a cult than the Republican Party. That is not a contention that I throw around lightly, but it is, you satisfy the requirements way more than the MAGA movement does.
You haven't asked me enough questions to know that.
Well, that's not that has nothing to do with what I've said.
Yes, it does.
I mean,
You haven't asked me if I would blindly follow some
Well, I'm
leader
not-
of the Democratic Party, which is no, I would only follow if I do the in-depth research of an unbiased source to get my information, and then I base my opinion
so
off of that.
Fair enough. Can you give me an example of an unbiased source?
I mean, like Mayo Clinic or just like any EDU source of college information.
I'll end this. If that's your idea of a biased source,
Off the top of my head.
I would encourage you to dig deeper and be more of a free thinker.
And I will, and I am a free thinker. And I grew up in a conservative household, and once I left my parents and their beliefs, and I moved to college in a very conservative state, I actually become more progressive.
Okay, and so how is your relationship with your parents?
I mean, it's fine. We don't agree on most things, but
Wait, so they didn't kick you out for having a different opinion? They're terrible cult members. Wait, they still love you for who you are, and do they pay your tuition?
nope.
Okay,
I pay my own tuition. I pay everything on my own.
well, good. Then they're even better parents. They make you pay for your own stuff. The point, so you can't even point to your own family as being part of a cult. They still love you. They still talk to you.
I would go as far to say, and if they're watching this, I do believe that my parents are in a cult. But
Do you understand how damaging that is? To go around to say the people who raised you and nurtured you and brought you into the world that you're a cult because some professor told me the definition of a cult in an anthropology course.
Nope. You're wrong.
It's so devastating to see the level of poor education we have currently in our world. If you are being taught the right things, you won't speak outright rubbish in public. Who are the tutors of these students? What are they teaching in school? It's so scary that kids these days will cut off their relative, cut off their loved ones because they don't believe in what they believe. What's that? It's a crazy world right now. Our educational system is causing so much of chaos, so much of damage to these young minds. This world needs a reform. What's your take on this?